Well, here we go. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. I'm not sure what happened, but technology is amazing, and finally we were able to connect. I'm glad to be here with you. Thank you for being here. This is Friday. Friday we do the Healing Circle. And as always, my partners and colleagues in this work, the amazing Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya, our leader at the African American Child Wellness Institute, and the phenomenal Tananye Hurd, one of the counselors, therapists, I think is the right word, with the Institute. And others will join us as well. But, you know, it's been an amazing period of time, Dr. B and Tananye. I think everybody's coming down off of the elections, number one. Everybody is trying to get their heads and minds around where we are with vaccinations. The news that the booster shots are widely available. In fact, I'm going to be doing mine today, and that's great. And the fact that children now between the ages of 5 and 11 are able to get their series started. So it's a game-changing opportunity. Amid that, there's a lot of concern about the declining rate of protection that people are experiencing, resulting in more people becoming impacted by COVID-19, even though they have had the first series, and some of whom have already had boosters as well. And in that case, as I understand it, though they may be becoming infected, they certainly are not experiencing the devastation that they might experience if they were not vaccinated, meaning less likely for hospitalization, less likely to need respirator, and less likely to die. So those benefits still remain paramount and important, and I guess, we shouldn't be lulled into believing that, oh, since I got the shot, I'm willy-nilly free. I think the science and the leaders are telling us all that the protocols that this pandemic caused us to adopt are still protocols of good health, of common sense, washing your hands, right? Being careful, maybe thinking twice about handshaking, keeping distance from people, wearing masks in public, being sure that you're not a vehicle as much as you can be for someone else becoming sick, and then protecting yourself from becoming sick just by social distancing. All those things. Well, that sets the stage for today's conversation. We're talking about, I'll ask Dr. B to present the formal title for today's program and go from there. But Dr. B, thank you so much for being here. I always love it when you begin the program by the teaching that you do, inviting us to understand this way of knowing, the protocol of the talking stick, how we can be together in a way that's orderly, predictable, and effective, because we all intend to do just that. So with that, Dr. B, I'm going to pass the talking stick to you. Welcome to the Healing Circle. And you have to unmute. Yeah.
That's such a good idea, unmuting. So thank you so much, brother, for including this Healing Circle as a core part of the things that you do. You're a great communicator in multiple ways and in multiple venues, and a very loved and beloved leader in our community. So I am just honored every time I'm in your presence, not just as a village elder, but as a friend and as a brother and as a true African man. We really love you in this community and what you continue to do. So I'm honored to be here. And I want to talk a little bit about why we do the circle and what that means. In our African tradition, we acknowledge the earth on which we stand, that it was created for all of us. And I also like to acknowledge the land here in Minnesota that was cared for, nurtured, and loved by the Lakota people, the indigenous Indian population in our community, and that we are on that land because they cared for it and they continue to care for it. And it's our responsibility to see ourselves connected to the earth and the sky and every living thing and every living person. So that belief of what African people believe is consubstantiation. And that word means all things are connected. We substantiate and we're interdependent on all things. The ecological system is a part of who we are. So the other thing about the circle is honoring the order. And in the circle, the reason we have a circle is because the center of the circle, whether you're young or old or educated formally or not, you all have access to the center of power. Because a circle, there's no top, no bottom, there's a center. And in that space, everybody's voice is valued, no matter who you are, where you come from. So we call this the healing circle, because in that circle, we get to look at power differently. We get to share power with one another and our wisdom with one another. And we use the talking stick as a symbol of who's got the floor at the moment. A person can ask for the talking stick and it will be passed on to them, or if they have the talking stick and it goes around in circles, they can always pass and not speak, but the opportunity to have power and speak is always available. And that's why we use our virtual talking stick, but symbolically in our spirits, we're in an African village, even though it's called Minneapolis. That African village is our own. And in that space, we claim our heritage. We honor our elders because they're closest to our ancestors. We honor our ancestors because they're closest to the Creator. So in this space, in this sacred space of remembrance, we claim our healing together. And the topic for today is the scary side of COVID without vaccines. So the whole point of it is to create what we call an impact panel. And here we'll be talking about what it's meant for us to have vaccines, what it's meant for us not to have it, and how we're managing that fear, that anger, that the miscommunication, the multiple myths that follow it, and what our job is as an African people in sustaining our lives together. So with that, I'll pass the talking stick to Sister Tananye, who isn't a counselor at Brackens. She is a community connector. And she holds that role, which is a very, very honorable and valued role. In fact, one of the highest roles in our community is to be a village connector. So I'm passing that to Sister Tananye.
Thank you.
Welcome to the circle, sister.
Thank you so much. And yes, I actually am very honored to be here. And just with regard to the vaccine, it's literally one of the easiest things that we can do to protect ourselves and our families. It's one of the best tools that we have right now to prevent death. I'm just going to keep it simple. We're trying to keep people from dying here. Mm-hmm. And that's in both children and adults. And, you know, keeping ourselves healthy, our children healthy, that should be our number one priority. Our elders healthy. Why is this not a priority for people? And, you know, if we do things like we exercise, we eat well, we do all these other things, and getting a shot, it's really one of the simplest ways to do that. I know that when I got my vaccine, I got it because I knew I was helping to prevent spreading that disease, not just in myself, but for my family, and not even just for my family, but also in the communities where I work and where I live. So, you know, it's just so, this vaccine is so important. And with that, I'll pass the talking stick back to you, Brother Al.
Thank you, Tananye. And so I think about, you know, the scary side of COVID-19 with or without the vaccines. And, you know, I think that that's a proper question to ask. What if we didn't have the vaccine? What if we've been this whole year now still searching for a solution, searching for strategy? What if we were still on lockdown the way we were about 5-6 months ago? Where would the economy be? Where would our jobs be? Would school be open again? No. Would the ability to shop and have, you know, even takeout, dining, and restaurant severely curtailed, I think? What would it look like if the vaccination, the vaccine had not materialized, and if we were still living sort of under the omnipresent threat of the ticker tape still rolling every day on CNN, saying today we surpassed, 700,000 deaths, and the next week, today we surpassed 800,000 deaths. The next week, today we surpassed, maybe 1 million deaths. How many deaths would we have expected or experienced due to COVID in this country? And how many deaths would we have experienced around the world due to COVID? And the death is just the extension, the end of the cycle. Just talking about the number of deaths does not really deal with the number of people whose lives are upended, destroyed in effect by the ravishing nature of the COVID-19 virus. I mean, so imagine if there wasn't a vaccine and that people were dying at the rates we just talked about, but how many more thousands of people would be being infected every day, every week? How many thousands of people would be needing healthcare, hospitalization, but guess what? Couldn't get it because the hospitals were full. How many more thousands of people would be trying to find their way to makeshift response centers in places like civic centers, schools that are shut down from their purpose of educating, but reconverted to not a hostel, but a center to treat or to mitigate or to triage people that are becoming infected by COVID-19. How many thousands of people who had planned procedures for other and existing medical conditions could no longer get those services? Why? Because the hospitals were full. Why? Because the clinics were still shut down or full. Why? Because the pressure to keep people alive, a fight that we were, really not winning, people were dying. And imagine again that there is no vaccine, and that progression of impact and horror and death and illness kept going unchecked. And that the best we had to offer at that time was simply the protocol of distancing, hand washing, being masked, and as much as possible, ensuring that everybody that was impacted or in contact with somebody was properly quarantining for the period of time recommended to ensure that you're not spreading the disease to other people. So I'm just imagining, using my imagination to see in my mind's eye a almost apocalyptic America and an apocalyptic planet Earth, where populations around the world are crumbling, people sick with no hope, and people moving towards various aspects of desperation because there is no hope, there is no vaccine. And because, again, with our best effort, we try to get as many people to follow protocols that will help provide some mitigation, but still there is transmission because there is no vaccine. And so, Dr. B, the question you posed about the horror of COVID-19 and of this pandemic, if we did not have a vaccine, is one that I think it's worth thinking about. If we think about it and imagine what that scenario would play out to be, it is depressing. It is scary. It's scary. And so then we have to step aside then and switch our focus, our gaze to the power and the beauty, in effect, of our of humanity's ability to mobilize intellectual and material resources to focus attention on the the DNA of health and healing, the DNA of the virus itself, and to not be casual, and to look at, most research using scientific method plays out over 5, 10, 15 years. But the willingness of our country and the willingness and the ability of the global scientific community to drop everything almost and focus massive energy on addressing this preeminent threat to our existence. That's what it is. It's an existential threat. And to come up with vaccines that have an immediate positive impact of reducing the spread, reducing the consequence of the infection. I think that's something to be thankful for, something to be happy about. That's what I think. So when I think about this, I become thankful and grateful and applaud all of the people that became, first responders, thinkers, people that served our community in all kinds of ways, and people that took heed and adopted the protocols, and the people who survived in the fairly early, onset of this pandemic. I'm grateful that all of them have done what they could together to try to be responsible and responsive, and to create and demonstrate that solutions do exist, that we really have the power to respond to and to overcome, and that the vaccine is a critical element, but it's one among many that we have embraced and that we're using in protocols to protect our lives and our families and our community. That's what I think. With that, I'll pass the talking stick back to Dr. B.
Thank you, Bye-bye. So when I think about the scary side of the COVID disease and the vaccine, I think about the historical legacy that we as Black people have in our interface with medicine. And the fact that we forget that we as a people were the first doctors. We were the first healers. And I always think about Dr. Charles Drew, who created the blood transfusion, and died in a white hospital as a Black man because they wouldn't treat him or give him one to save his life. So Black folks, we've been always the sacrificial lamb, and we've always been disempowered when it came to our health. How we know that gynecological techniques like the uncomfortable stirrups that we sit in when we have babies or have our exams, the fact that we have those scapulas and all of these instruments, they were first tried on Black women in slavery. And that when Henrietta Lacks was struggling with an aggressive cervical cancer that invaded her whole body, they took the samples and kept them for medical science to study, to fight cancer without her knowledge or consent of her family. So we've often been the sacrificial lamb. And so we come with that fear that we can't trust medicine, forgetting that medicine, the original medicine, began with us. And that now when we have people like a Black woman who worked at Moderna, creating the vaccine for her people to be sure that they were safe. And we have these vaccines that our community leaders like you, Brother McFarlane, who show us that we have to be courageous when we step into wellness, that we can't step into that space with fear. And we, as many of us are Christian or even Muslim, we believe that there's a God that's bigger than all, and that he sits in the center of all power, because all power was created through him. And if we are afraid, we step out in faith, believing that that God who brought us this far didn't bring us back to leave us. He didn't bring us this far to leave us. And so we have to also challenge our own spirituality and our own fears. Because in my religion as a Christian, they said God did not give us a spirit of fear. So we can't walk with a spirit of fear. We have to step out courageously, believing that this one act of getting our vaccination may change not just our world, but the world. It changes the world of our grandchildren who need to visit us with their little snotty noses and they never stop, even if they're sick. It changes the possibility of us being in weddings for our daughters and sons. It changes the possibilities for us to be at graduation parties and be with our family or Thanksgiving and at Christmas and all the traditional ways we celebrate. It gives us the ability to run and operate our businesses so that now customers can still come in safely, knowing that, and even having concerts and things like that so that we can be safe. So I know that the scary side of COVID is disconnection. Mm-hmm. The scary side, disconnection through having to quarantine, are a permanent disconnection through death. So we have to think about what our life would be like if we took the vaccine, as well as if we don't take it. And we have to be self-preservative and community aware and committed. So we are, because I am, because we are. If we hold that mentality, we understand that each one of us is just as valuable as the next in this center and in this circle. And our not doing it is just as dangerous as the whole circle not doing it, because we are social and we're socially connected. So I like the idea of thinking of it bigger than us and remembering how many people this past year, I don't know a soul who has not lost somebody to COVID. I don't know not one person. And in our weekly staff meetings every week, we have somebody who can be named as getting COVID, even dying from it, and not getting vaccinated. And I'm so happy that many systems are now requiring people to engage the process of getting immunized or get tested every week so that the people around them can be safe. I'm so glad. And I was really, really angry when I heard, what's his name? The guy who's the football player over in Wisconsin, because I don't like that team, so I don't remember their name. What's their quarterback? Anyway, he had COVID, sitting up there breathing on people in huddle, leaving folks thinking that he's vaccinated, and he's saying I'm immunized because I'm eating well, and a whole bunch of nonsense while he's at home with COVID and sharing it in that huddle where you breathing. They don't have they have face masks, but they don't have glass in them. So they're up there in the small spaces. So people, I know his teammates, they may not have come public, but I know a lot of them were angry and very disappointed in the fact that they trusted him to be safe. And so that's another piece, is about being trustworthy and being safe around other people who may not either be able to take the vaccine or who are autoimmune compromised. Those are the scary sides, that you walk around like a gun, putting people around you in danger. So that part really gets me. So with that, I'm gonna get off my soapbox and pass the talking sister to Sister Tananya.
Thank you, Dr. B. That was Aaron Rodgers, I believe that.
Yes,
that you're talking about, because I'm kind of a Green Bay. I was a Green Bay fan until I heard about that. I'm like, yeah, okay. But as a parent, as a community member, I personally would be terrified if we didn't have this vaccine. I just thinking about things like smallpox, which has been eradicated because of a vaccine. Polio, that's on its last legs. We don't see nearly people paralyzed by that vaccine. And then if you imagine taking away that vaccine, we would have countless numbers of people that would be paralyzed by a virus that's preventable. And I really believe that COVID, it works the same way. People are needlessly dying because they haven't taken a vaccine. With measles, imagine a world if we didn't have the measles vaccine. It would just it's so detrimental to not only our community but the world. That's so right. It's just, again, this one shot that people have taken for countless other diseases, countless reasons to prevent other things. We have the flu shot, we have the pneumonia shot, there are the measles, mumps, rubella, just everything that we need to keep us safe. People don't have an issue with that, but you have an issue with this, which is literally killing millions of people. So it's just, to me, it's really scary. A world without the vaccine, a world with people refusing to take the vaccine, it's terrifying. And I'll pass the stick back to you, Brother Al.
Thank you. And so, again, I'm joining you and all of us together in encouraging people to embrace the science and embrace healing, and embrace our obligation, our proactive possibility by getting vaccinated for yourself and family members. And if you have children, having the children in your household from 5 to 11 be vaccinated so that they can play safely at school and not be worried about so much about being infected with COVID, or if they happen to get infected, to not have such a debilitating experience that they could have were they not vaccinated. I think the science still is hoping that most Americans, some 70 or 80%, if we can cross that threshold of vaccination, will be still moving towards what they described early on as herd immunity. I haven't heard that discussion a lot lately, but I just remember that's one of the things that was an early articulation of the goal to reduce the impact and to mitigate, to slow the spread of virus and to keep people healthy. And the idea was that the more people are vaccinated, the fewer places there are for the virus to go and grow and spread. And so I think that's still important. It's important for us to think that way and talk that way and have conversations around the dinner table and our casual conversations with people we do business with, people we're emailing and chatting with on the phone. Oh, by the way, have you had your shot? Oh, by the way, have you had the booster? By the way, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Part of our checking in with each other, our expectation that we desire that people we know and come in contact with be healthy, are healthy, and that they also would have the same desire for us. And so part of our conversation should be the affirming conversation about, are you, have you been, are you going to, when are you going to, oh, you should, oh, I did, and I really feel good, I'm relieved, I feel more confident in doing my daily routine. I'm still being careful, but I'm not fearful, because I was kind of immobilized at the height of this, where I was, feeling paranoia about the possibility of, even walking big circles around people, even if I was outdoors taking my walk along the river and saw somebody else coming my way, as opposed to take the risk of walking past them on a walkway. I felt I needed to walk 20 feet to the right or 20 feet to the left to get around them. So that kind of angst, I think, characterized all of us for a period of time. And the value of the vaccine is we don't have that kind of anxiety, but we still have to be intentional, proactive, use the protocols of distance and masking and hand washing and all the other strategies we know that can help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And the beauty of the moment, Dr. B, is that we do have this demonstratively effective COVID-19 vaccination. And that is almost a miracle. It's science. It's the miracle of science and the miracle of governments and public bodies reacting to what obviously is a high global national priority and coming up with solutions. So I'm thankful for that again. But I think we have to keep this conversation going. And I also want to think about, Dr. B, what are we going to learn from this experience? What are we going to learn about collaboration? What are we going to learn about focusing intellectual, spiritual, educational energy? What are we going to learn about public education and miseducation? What are we going to learn about the cost of health and healing? So, you know, we always talk about the high cost of doctor's visits and medicines and treatments, you know, for your high blood pressure and for your diabetes and all those things. And we hear these stories all the time about people having to choose between food or medicine, or between, you know, rent or paying their rent or getting the medicine to stay alive. So there's this ongoing question about the cost of medicines, right? But now here we are with a society that's able to immunize or to vaccinate's the right word, 300 million people in a 2 to 3 dose regimen without 1 penny of cost to the consumer. At some point in time, do we owe it to ourselves to look at how that could happen in an environment where many people, particularly those at the margin, have always been forced, some of which sometimes to forego medicine because they didn't have the money to buy it. How's now we get this dose that obviously is expensive, but millions, 300 million. So 300 million times three doses, that's almost 1 billion doses being made available in this country alone. And if you look at the global population of 6 billion people, you know, it's going to require 18 billion doses for global impact. And I think the globe is saying that if we don't address this globally, the problem and the cost is going to be greater and bigger. So everybody's on board. So if we all are on board around that, what does it mean for the other medicines we are taking to stay alive? You know, what are we learning about how we should do stuff, organize capital, organize the cost of research, organize the distribution system, organize paying the big companies. The big companies producing this stuff aren't producing it for free. They're being paid. I'm sure nobody's having the discussion. I haven't seen anywhere, Dr. B, a discussion of how much Pfizer is billing the U.S. government. I don't know how much Moderna is billing the U.S. government. I have no idea what's the other major one? Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson and Johnson. Have you heard anything about any numbers about what these vaccines are costing? But you know they're getting paid.
Yep.
Right, and they're getting paid, and it's not like if somebody else paying it. It's the common treasury of our United States, meaning everybody at some level or another is contributing to the payment to these companies for the medicines they have done the research and the development and manufactured and delivered to the government for distribution in clinics and hospitals and pharmacies, all of that. And so I just wonder how we need to begin to rethink the entire process of the cost of health and healing. Should this be looked at as a model for moving towards universal free healthcare for people in this country? That's a big
Yeah.
argument. It's a big fault line between the so-called
Mm-hmm.
conservative right wing and the progressives. The progressives, as I understand it, more uh, uh, talk about universal health care for all, and making our country more like some of the progressive governments in Europe that that make health care affordable and available to everybody. Um, so let me, I see a note from Tananya. Let me pass the talk
Ooh,
to Tananya. Go ahead.
ooh, yeah. Please, let's do. Pass it to
Oh,
Tanani.
yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the government and what they're paying. I don't know the numbers on Moderna or Johnson and Johnson, but I do remember that, and this was months ago, that the U.S. paid Pfizer $1.9 billion, and that was nearly 8 or 9 months ago. So that
Mhm,
I was saying 1.9 billion and counting.
mhm, mhm.
Wow, wow. And let me take the stick, because what I want to say is, you got to hear this. I think it's worth it, because that 1.9 billion, some of that saved my life.
Mhm.
Saved my husband's life, my sister's life, my brothers, my nieces, my nephews. If I was a billionaire, I would pay 1.9 billion to save my own life. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's worth it. And so one of the things that kind of hits me when I think about that money is that there's a social contract. And that social contract, I think years ago when Martin Luther King was doing the speech, he was talking about that we had a debt, a check that had come, it was bouncing. We paid the price, and the check was bouncing from the government not taking care of us, not giving us the rights we paid for. And so now we're seeing the byproduct of our tax paying. We're seeing the byproduct of what it looks like when government does work for you. And some of us aren't taking advantage of it because we're doubtful. So once again, I think if anybody's listening to this or seeing us speak today, I want them to stop. If you had 1.9 billion and they said you could save yourself, your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, your brothers and sisters, and they say all you got to do is give me that 1.9 billion, you say I'll let them go or let us all die, keep the money. How many people would say that? And if you're saying it, I tell you right now, I need to talk to you. I'll give you a free session just to discover why you think your life's not that valuable. Because they are. They are valuable. All of our lives, especially our Black lives matter. Our Black lives matter. And that's why the motto that we're switching to now a little bit is our Black lives matter, right? Save yours, get the vaccine now. That's going to be our new spiel now. Is that your child's lives matter. Our Black children's lives matter. Save theirs. Get your child vaccinated now. I'm telling you, it's time for us to step up. I'm happy they paid them. If I had it, I'd pay them myself. So
Well,
you can have to stick back on our brother out.
the beauty of it is the model says that they spread the cost over all of the citizens in the country. So it ends up that even if you are a person that has $1.9 billion, you're not paying 1.9 billion. That cost is being shared over all of the people that pay taxes and purchase goods and services in the country itself. So that being the case, there is no, as you said, number that's too high to pay to save our lives, and that's what we're doing. So take that in the moment that COVID-19 and our response to it affords us, and let's apply the principles and the strategies that we've come up with to effectively support protecting and saving our lives. How do we apply that across the entire enterprise, across the entire apparatus of society, of community, and of governance, so that everybody can be healthy all the time, so that dollars don't get in the way of my ability to breathe, to know that my life matters, as you say, Dr. B. And so that's the point I want to keep bringing up. I think we should elevate the conversation while we always talk specifically about the benefit and the need and the importance of everybody getting vaccinated. We also should use this as a point of departure, a way for us to look at the entire process. You know, yes. One of the things that Gary Sudduth used to be the head of the Minneapolis Urban League, rest in peace, Gary Sudduth, but he was famous for raising the statement in the halls of power. He'd say, you know, let's follow the money. We're talking about social change, talking about community development, talking about ending unemployment, ending the homelessness and the lack of wealth in the Black community. This is back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, not new. And he said, you know what? All of the captains of industry here say that we are committed to creating opportunity for everybody, but let's follow the money. And so I'm saying that here again is an opportunity for us to teach ourselves that it's okay and that we should follow the money. Let's understand how money moves through the culture, through society, and through the healthcare apparatus as well. I've said this before. My grandmother used to say, Alvin, you know, you got to mind your business, right? And she said that as a classic double entendre. Obviously, you know, just pay attention to what you're doing. But she was talking about our particular role in a church, and she was saying that our church is our family business. And what she said by extension is that, you know, religion itself is probably the biggest business on earth, right? And you need to understand that and mind your business. And I say that health is one of the biggest businesses on earth. We need to understand that, and we need to mind our business. Dr. B, I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you.
Thank you for that. And that is why I think I've talked several times about the wellness bill of rights that I use in my clinic, that we affirm that we have a right to wellness, that our children have a right to wellness, and our community has a right to wellness. And that as a people, we will seek our wellness by any means necessary. And sometimes that means we are our biggest enemy. We talk ourselves out of eating properly. We talk ourselves out of using safe forms of sex. We talk ourselves out of getting vaccines or getting our flu shot or taking our blood pressure medicine or whatever it is. We talk ourselves out of it. So we have to see that we have that right to wellness and that it exists as an important part of that social contract that I was mentioning earlier. But also, what I really enjoy when I think about our right to wellness is that the money, not only should we follow it, it needs to follow us. Mm-hmm. And so we need to use money in a way to support our own enterprises, our own Black businesses. We need that money that we make wherever we get it from to empower, sustain, and create our own sustainable institutions. And that concept of Kujichagulia, self-determination, or Ujamaa, where we're talking about cooperative economics, we need to put ourselves in minding our business by owning our businesses. Mm-hmm. Or if we don't own it, work with and for businesses that are owned by people who look like you, who understand your values. And so I think I like the idea of following the money, and I also, of course, like the idea of it following us. That's why in our clinic, we struggle to always find ways to have people have mental health accessible, whether regardless of your ability to pay. Because what happens in our society and the policies that we have every day is that the people who get the funds to serve us don't look like us. They don't understand us. They'll say you can come regardless of your ability to pay, but you're stepping into a place that's not healing for you. You're stepping into a place and practices that don't support your idea of community or family. So it's really important for us as a community to, you know, not just follow the money, have it follow us. So I'm going to pass the stick to Sister Tananya, because I know she's an entrepreneur of her own 501c3. I just want to give her a chance to shout that out about what she's doing and how she's helping with the cause. So you got the talking stick, Sister Tananya.
Oh, thanks, Dr. B. Yeah, no, I'm a certified advocate and trauma educator, and I actually do have my own 501c called Choose Compassion, and we do assist people with trauma of all types. But of course, what is at the forefront now is the vaccine, and really the things that we take for granted right now in not getting the vaccine is the kind of freedom that the vaccine allows us of interacting with people without that terror and fear. You know, that is what the vaccine is here to help take away. And then just remembering that, you know, these diseases pick out the vulnerable people first. And that's all diseases, including COVID, especially COVID now. But that's just the nature of these diseases. They seek out our babies, our elders, other groups of people where they have, you know, weakened immune systems. And it is just so important to remember that COVID this is lethal. This is a lethal thing. And, you know, I just don't understand why we are not jumping on this. As we say, you know, Pfizer has paid, you know, all of these people are really jumping in line to push this out and make sure that we're getting vaccinated. Why wouldn't we want to protect ourselves, our communities, our families? And just with that, I'll pass that right back to you, Al.
Okay, let me try to share a screen. Let me know if you see my screen share. Are you able to see my screen share?
Not yet.
You're not? Okay, I'm trying to share my screen because I have, I'm not sure what the challenge is. I've got, let me move it around a little bit here. I'm sharing Monday's edition of Insight News. And let me know if what are you seeing? Just us talking?
Yeah, just us talking.
It says we're sharing a window. I'm not sure what I don't know how to do here. It has worked for me in the past, but it's not working now. But what I wanted to share with you was the upcoming edition of our newspaper, and one of the stories in it on our second front, our page 3 front page, says the healing circle, Dr. B's mantra: if Black Lives Matter, save yours and get the vaccine now. So you haven't seen that yet, Dr. B. I'll be emailing it to you momentarily, but that's one of our lead stories in this edition. It's one of Brenda's excellent regular weekly columns about the healing circle. She did a great job, and this presents you and brother Dr. Williams in the conversation we had last week about the mantra that you just described. So right. I'm still, as I'm speaking, still trying to get it to share, but I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you, Dr. B, and I'll be trying to work this while you're talking.
Okay, I'll be glad to, and I don't know why it's acting like that, because you have been sharing all this time. All of a sudden today, it's just the devil. but the truth is, we are fighting for our very lives, and I am seeing hope, and we have to hold on just a little while longer, and we have to join that fight. We have to be very, very fierce in our commitment to claim our wellness. And I imagine, what would the world be like if all the scientists in the world, like they did with COVID, just stopped and looked at what they could do about Alzheimer's? If they just stopped and thought about what they could do with pancreatic cancer or brain cancer or memory, breast cancer. What would they do? What would the world be like if those brains see that we are all connected, if all over the world, everybody felt like they had that right to wellness, and consubstantiation meant that if you're poor in a village in Africa, in Nigeria, where my family's from, or if you're rich in a subdivision of Minnesota, in Minnetonka, or wherever you live, and that all of those same people, regardless of where you live, you're part of a human family where we have a social contract of caring for one another. Just imagine. This is why that part, to me, that wouldn't be, the only person who'd be scared of that is the devil. Because the truth is, if we start loving and leading and caring for one another, that's going to fool around and create peace, cohesiveness, support, and growth. That's what that would fool around and do. And that would be awesome. So I don't know where you are with your showing your screen.
I think we're at the end of the program, but let me ask Kelvin. Kelvin, I see my screen share in the backstage area. Is there something that you have to do, Kelvin, to enable my screen to be shared? Because I do see it next to the backstage monitor on my screen. So it's there. It's just not being shared in the studio itself. Kelvin, are you there? You can answer either online or answer in the chat. Anyway, you know what? The hour has gone so quickly, and we're at the end of the hour. Let's call it a day. This has been a great program. Thank you so much, Dr. B. Thank you so much, Tananya. Tananya, let's talk later on today, because I want to get you to start writing about your work in Inside News. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.